Hi everyone. Welcome to week one of the Inclusive Energy Access online course. My name is Dina Yazdani and I'll be delivering this week's introductory lecture. I'm currently a program officer for Mercy Corps' regional programming team with the Middle East, and I was previously a program manager for Energy Access and Emergencies with Mercy Corps' Energy Technical Support Unit. Let's start by exploring two very different humanitarian settings where we can see the benefit of energy access and witness the consequences when individuals are excluded from energy access. We'll first discuss experiences of South Sudanese refugees in Uganda who live in rural off-grid refugee settlements with extremely low levels of energy access as a starting point. Then we'll meet Syrian refugees in Jordan, where gender roles and energy affordability play a major role in urban host communities with grid connectivity. Northern Uganda's Bidi camp is considered the largest refugee camp in the world, with over 250,000 refugees, largely from South Sudan. In Uganda, 75% of refugees lack any renewable source of energy, and 93% of host and refugee households rely on wood fuel for cooking. Grid access is non-existent. Deforestation and access to sustainable energy for cooking, lighting, and power are key challenges. Refugee households use 3.5 kilograms of firewood daily. Lack of access to energy for light, power, and cooking imposes serious limitations on quality of life, safety, and economic opportunity, with outsized impacts for women, children, and marginalized groups, including the disabled. Mercy Corps and the Women's Refugee Commission carried out inclusive energy assessments in Bidi in 2019, exploring energy roles, needs, and priorities of men, women, boys, and girls within host and refugee communities. After consultations with 73 refugees and 21 host community members, segmented to include men, women, boys, and girls, all groups ranked lighting and cooking as top energy priorities. Women and children bear primary responsibility for water and fuel wood collection, where they are exposed to risk of physical and sexual assault. Fear of violence and attacks while traveling in darkness was the most frequently ranked threat, with water collection perceived as the most dangerous task, followed by firewood collection. Few households have access to household lighting sources and power, and use, where it exists, tends to be dominated by male household members. Despite risks associated with fuel wood collection, it's often a gateway to the few viable income generation opportunities available to women. Meet Elna Koropo, 21, who is frying snacks for her mother's food stall using collected firewood. Her mother, Tabu Knight, 60, sells snacks and other items to neighbors and now earns on average 20,000 Ugandan shillings or $5.50 a week from the stall. Life is still not easy, food is never plentiful, but with fuel for cooking and supplying her small business, Tabu can earn enough to feed her grandchildren. Our assessments and work with Bidi residents have underscored that access to energy, from cooking fuel to light to power, can unlock economic opportunity, improve feelings of security, and generally contribute to substantial improvements in quality. In Jordan, energy access issues facing Syrian refugees are very different than those we just discussed in Uganda, but nevertheless are major determinants of safety, daily struggles, and opportunity, particularly for women and girls. Jordan's northern city of Mafraq is located close to the main border crossing point for Syrian refugees entering Jordan. The Mafraq Governorate hosts around 85,000 Syrians living outside of refugee camps. Close to half of all non-camp refugees in Jordan are estimated to reside in substandard housing, which may have inadequate structural, wash, and/or energy access issues. Many rent from Jordanian landlords. In Mafraq, rent increased from 70 to 150 Jordanian dinars a month prior to the crisis to approximately 200 to 300 Jordanian dinars in 2018. Energy costs and utility bills consume a large portion of household budgets, and most refugees face an income expenditure gap. Refugees resort to a wide range of dangerous coping mechanisms, from illegal or exploitative work, exploitation from landlords, and child labor, including street begging. Early marriage of young girls is also on the rise, often as a result of poverty and household resource constraints. In the middle photo is Amina, who is the mother of 7 children who fled Aleppo, Syria. She's receiving assistance to improve her home that she's sharing with her husband and his other wife and children in Mafraq. It's only a 2-room home for approximately 15 people. Her son, Iman, in the red and white sweater, is unable to walk due to a disability and is deaf. For women like Amina, energy access is widespread, but affordability is a key barrier and can put pressure on households to reduce their use of electricity and gas. Poor construction and weatherproofing makes heating a key challenge during cold winter months. Another key energy challenge involves energy meters shared between households, since many Jordanians added or split up existing homes to rent spaces to refugees. Establishing responsibility for energy consumption and bills is hard. As one woman stated, quote, "Shared meter is imposing so much injustice, especially when one family has so many more appliances, hair dryers, etc. I believe that each household should have an independent meter." End of quote. In public spaces, heating and power for schools is a challenge, and lack of lighting in public spaces exacerbates fears of harassment and assault for women and girls, and robbery or theft for all. Winterization projects, providing heaters and other critical heating items and support to lessen costs of energy, for example through solar water heater installation, has proven successful and yielded dividends for both host and refugees like Amina. Attention to female income generation that is sensitive to gender norms and roles is much needed. Successful interventions have included bringing women into energy efficiency projects and value chains, and supporting in-home income generation opportunities. In addition, community consultations revealed high demand for energy conservation to make the most efficient use of limited and expensive fuel and electricity. For Syrian refugee women like Amina, energy needs are greatly impacted by her gender, recent experience of displacement, and caregiving responsibilities. And energy access can alleviate burdens and provide economic opportunities. As illustrated by the stories from Uganda and Jordan, safe and reliable energy access has the power to change the lives of displaced people, but for most it's expensive, it's dirty, and it's dangerous. The energy needs of millions of displaced people are being met inadequately or not at all, with women, children, and people with disabilities often bearing the heaviest burden related to risk and lack of energy access. Inclusive energy access considers how age, sex, and other aspects of identity condition energy needs and access in emergencies. Inclusive access to energy can alleviate disparities between groups and reduce risk associated with energy access and use. Even where physical energy infrastructure exists, women and children, and specifically girls, tend to have the least access and use of energy as a result of affordability or access to finance, appliances, information, and social norms. For example, Tabu, like all women and girls in Bidi, has primary responsibility for collecting firewood. She faces significant risk to her personal safety in accessing firewood to fuel her snack-making business. Amina's role as a woman and mother meant that she shoulders the heavy burden of caregiving and household chores for her large family, keeping children warm with limited heating and cooking and cleaning with limited appliances. But while we focus heavily in the training on women and girls as an important starting point for inclusive energy access, we recognize that other and intersecting identities and circumstances can be just as important, such as race, ethnicity, displacement, and economic status. We use gender and age as a starting point, but not an endpoint for considering inclusive energy needs. For example, Amina's already large caregiving responsibilities in the absence of reliable energy are exacerbated with the added responsibility of caring for her disabled son. Her family's status as refugees means that gaining permission to work is difficult and limits income and ability to pay for essentials like electricity and gas. For Tabu, her precarious economic status makes it difficult for her to afford basic energy products, including lanterns and charging a cell phone. Without those basic amenities, she faces greater safety risks and is unable to stay connected to distant family members who offer emotional and financial support. Throughout this course, We'll be unpacking ways to design and implement inclusive energy interventions that effectively understand and address these unique and intersecting energy needs across age, sex, and identity groups. Gender-based violence is any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will and is based on socially ascribed differences between males and females. It includes acts that inflict physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering, threats of such actions, coercion, and other deprivations of liberty. Throughout the course, we'll be considering gender-based violence and how energy access can both alleviate GBV, for example, by lighting pathways that would otherwise be considered too risky for women and girls to travel at night, and how energy access can introduce risk of GBV. For example, if women and girls are at risk of sexual violence while seeking firewood, or if conflicts around energy use at home introduces tensions and risk of domestic violence. We'll also be using the term intersectionality in this course. This refers to the combination of identity characteristics that influence a person's opportunity and risk. This concept can help us understand, for example, how Amina's experience as a displaced low-income woman with a disabled child will dictate specific energy needs. But let's bring this back to you, the learner, for a moment. Do you work in a particular humanitarian sector or role? Have you already identified common energy needs in your sector and how gender, age, and identity affects those needs? We'll discuss how energy access accelerates progress towards humanitarian goals, while neglecting energy needs will impede progress. We know that energy is an enabler underpinning and supporting all humanitarian sectors and objectives. But we'll look forward to hearing from you about how inclusive energy access comes up in your day-to-day work and the opportunities and challenges that you face meeting those needs. We'll be focusing on 4 key questions, with "for whom" centering every discussion. These questions will guide us through practical tools and steps to design and implement inclusive energy access programs. The activities and resources presented this week will introduce additional key concepts and terms, preparing you to dive into the 4 questions throughout the remainder of the course. Throughout the course, we encourage you to connect the ideas and tools to your current work and consider how you might use them in your day-to-day work and within your organization. We're excited to dive into this course and learning experience together, and we're excited to hear from you.